share my work about on the valgus knee deformities, starting from the grade 1 to grade 3. And as we know that valgus has a soft tissue component and it has a bony component also. So we have to address the both. And the talk given to me was how to manage the lateral bone defects on the tibial side. So the philosophy of managing the bone defect is not going to change. So you have to identify whether it's a peripheral defect or whether it's a central defect, whether it's a contained defect or whether it's an uncontained defect. So you can manage that accordingly. But your primary goal of a valgus knee correction starts with your soft tissue correction and your bone cuts. So the ligament balancing leads to the successful knee replacement outcome. A balanced knee contributes to the improved alignment and stability. Ligament balancing reduces the wear and loosening of the joint, and patients with the balanced knee are more likely to have an increased range of movement, patient satisfaction. And if you're doing the scoring system in your patients, then definitely you will see the good WOMAC score or a KSS score or a SF36 score. So the different techniques and sequences has been mentioned, and there are tools you might not have seen, or few of the senior surgeons they might have seen the ligament balancing techniques. So in valgus knee, as I mentioned, there is a bony component is there is an internal rotation of the femur, and there is a posterolateral defect on the tibial side. So soft tissue contractures are more on the lateral side, and it's a laxity on the medial side. So these contractures affect the lateral collateral ligament, iliotibial band, popliteus tendon, and your posterolateral capsule. So your release is depend on which structure is tight, whether it's tight in extension, whether it's tight in flexion, or whether it's tight in flexion extension both. So all balancing start with the removal of the osteophyte first, and then you pay your attention to ligament. Before we start the surgery, I always tell my fellows that your surgery starts when you see the patient first time, because in clinic you need to know that how much is the correction manually. Then you see the correction after the anesthesia before you start the case, and see that whether the ligaments are tight in extension, flexion, or both, because that will guide you what cuts you are going to take and what ligaments you are going to release. So it's very important. And second thing is, I normally use a Krakow or a Ranawat classification, less than 10 degrees, 10 to 20 degrees of the valgus deformity, or more than 20 degrees grade 3 valgus deformity. Second thing is, look at the MCL. If your MCL is correctable, it's tight but the deformity is correctable, MCL loose but is intact and correctable, is grade 1. If it's intact but not correctable, grade 2. And third is where the MCL is completely lax. So your approach is there, medial parapatellar or lateral parapatellar, which is a cablish approach. I did only 2 or 3 cases in my whole study up till now with the lateral parapatellar, but most of the cases can be handled by medial parapatellar. So femoral preparation, your entry point, as I mentioned, under the anesthesia, see the deformity, see the correction. Your entry point is more on the medial side. The reason behind that, your HK axis is positive. So you are entering more on the medial side, not at the exactly at the PCL level, PCL insertion. So your valgus angle or valgus cut should be 5 or less than 5, so because that is going to change your extension gap and flexion gap. So in valgus you have to have a conservative resection. Femoral side is okay, because femoral side on the normal side, which is a medial side, you can take almost like a 5 to 6 millimeter, and lateral side you can just scruffing off from the lateral side. It's okay, there is no problem. On the tibial side, you have to decrease your cut, because if you go with the normal jigs and normal measurements of 9 millimeter or 10 millimeter, whatever system is you are using, is going to increase your gap, because valgus invariably is very lax knee, so you have to make sure that your cut is less. So normally whatever system I am using, my cut is always between 3 to 5, not more than 5 at all. So at the same time, when you take a tibial cut, make sure that you have seen your defect also on the lateral side, if it is present. So if you want to screw, or you can get away with the cement, less than 2 to 5 millimeter, you can get away with the cement. If it's more than 5 millimeter, content defect, if you want to put screw, you can put screw. More than 10, you can put graft, bone grafts. Then check the rotations also. Posterior condylar referencing can lead to the internal rotation. I normally use anti-referencing. I mention all these points, and make sure that you avoid intramedullary tibial devices when you take a tibial cut. So if you see the literature, there are different techniques are mentioned by Leo Whiteside, then there is Dr. Ranawat, they have mentioned about the different techniques. If your knee is tight in flexion, there is a problem with the tight only in flexion, there is a problem with the your popliteus and lateral collateral. So you have to address that. But make sure that if your knee is in extension, if the knee is tight on the lateral side is in extension, start releasing from the posterolateral capsule first. When you put the laminar spreader inside, you will see the lateral capsule, posterolateral capsule, take a number 15 blade and release it. You will see the correction. What is the use of laminar spreader? Because it will start opening and you will see that controlled release on that side. Second thing is, if it's still tight, go ahead with the pie crusting of the iliotibial band. Once you are happy with your extension gap, then you address your flexion gap. And make sure that, as Neeraj has mentioned, you can make sure that how much rotation you are giving. So, as I mentioned, valgus tightness, flexion, extension, LCL, and LCL is only tight in flexion and extension. So you have to address that. If it's flexion, then both popliteus and LCL, and in extension is suppose PCL, posterolateral capsule, and your iliotibial band. So if your knee fails to come in full extension, don't resect more distal femur, because that's what I was mentioning, that they are invariably lax. So if you start cutting more distal femur, you are putting your knee in more laxity. So gently manipulate the knee in extension, allowing the release to propagate itself, and pie crust the lateral side for tightness. So which I already mentioned, that you can take a number 15 blade and you start releasing from the posterolateral side and pie crust the iliotibial band if required. Coming to the femoral rotation, during the extension gap, you came to the femoral, this is the most important thing now. Because most of the thing you can manage on the flexion side now. The best technique you can use, there are landmarks are there, you've seen that, there is a epicondylar line is there. Obviously your Leo Whiteside line will help you a lot for making sure that you are not putting your implant in internal rotation. So that is the most important thing, because if you put it, your patella will not track very well. So use gap balancing method. Be aware of the posterolateral condylar axis in the valgus knee, because the lateral posterolateral femoral condyle is hypoplastic. So what is going to happen when you do the sizing? Your sizer is going to sit in an internal rotation. So if you're using the Smith and Nephew system, they already have the shims. So you can use those shims and make sure that your femur will sit in a external rotation. If you don't have, you can use the osteotomes, so that your osteotome is there and you are doing the sizing and it works very well. Second thing is use the run out technique. You have done the tibia cut, take your spacer, put the spacer there. You have done the sizing, whether it's a size 4 or size 5 femur, and you are making sure that it's not going to go in an internal rotation. So just put this and put that APCC jig on top of that. That is your rotation required for that patient. Okay? So somebody is holding the knee in extension, flexion, and put that spacer, put your sizer on top of that APCC jig, and that is your rotation. Put your pins and you will not going to make any mistakes. Obviously, there are few things are there in the market which are the laminar spreaders, and before the this robo and navigation techniques. So these balancers are there. So LBS is there for OptiTrack, Balances is for Matthews. I will just show you the pictures. Laminar spreaders, which is the best one which is available. Balances is a Matthews system where you can do the rotation, manage the rotation. You can see the gaps here. Then there is a striker, they have the knee balancer which is known as a monogram. So you can put your sizer, you can put your balancer, you can do the sizing, rotation and balance both together in one go. Then Journey, they have the gap balancer of the Smith and Nephew where you do the same thing. You can do the rotations and you can do the sizing and you can say the cuts also. Then LBS, they have LBS for the optic tract. So let's go through the few cases. So this is a grade 1 bilateral valgus using the implants, and this is full correction. Another grade 1 case with the Zimmer implant. So this is a next gen. Then 68-year with the valgus, a little bit of wind sweep deformity with the Zimmer implant. So then we have a severe valgus case, grade 2, correctable. Here I have used the Smith & Nephew implants. Then severe deformity with the wind sweep deformity. In these cases also, you can manage very well and you can still get away with the primary implants. This I want to show you because they will look very nasty when the patient comes to your clinic. But if you do a sequential release, sizing very well, managing your gaps, you can get away very well with the primary implants. Last case, grade 3 deformities, severe valgus, severe bone loss. In these cases, this is a grade 3 deformity. You have to have a CCK as a backup. You have to have a CCK. There is no way around. Because sometimes you need a CCK. You can do the bone grafting on the lateral side. You can see that there are 2 screws are there. Bone grafting is done. And the balance is very good. So same thing, bilateral valgus, severe valgus case, HK axis completely gone inside and managed with the constrained knee. So here you don't need to think about that. So in conclusion, severe valgus deformity, avoid excessive initial bone resection, first thing. Balance your flexion gap by femoral rotation. Balance your extension gap by pie crusting and lateral release, posterolateral capsule release. Avoid residual medial laxity. And check your peroneal nerve function in recovery. That is the most important thing. Second thing is, I forgot about that. You document that very well. Before you start the case, before the anesthesia, document about the peroneal nerve function. Because most of the time, because of the laxity or your correction, sometimes you get a neuropraxia, patient get worried, but tell them that over the period of the 3 to 6 months, they get recovered very well. Thank you.